The disciples once made a perfectly reasonable request: increase our faith. They didn't just say this out of the blue. Jesus had been teaching them some demanding stuff about what a love-shaped life looks like. For instance, you have to confront people when they've gone off the rails, only you have to do it compassionately, being willing to forgive and ready to mend fences, not just once, but over and over and over again. That's a tall order, so they said, increase our faith. My sense is that they meant something like this: help us learn. Teach us how to do this, and give us the gumption to do it. Then Jesus offered them this thought-provoking puzzle. He told them, if you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, be uprooted and planted in the sea, and it would obey you. Stare at this passage as long as you like, but you're not going to find any explicit instructions about how to forgive, or any well-defined concepts about God that you have to accept. At this point in their time with Jesus, the disciples would not have been surprised. Frustrated and confused, maybe, but not surprised. They had learned that Jesus' most challenging teachings rarely convey information directly. Instead, his lessons stretch our souls by loosening our grip on what we feel so certain about. That goes especially for our ideas about God. Jesus recognizes that religious people, and honestly not so religious people for that matter, often cling to the ideas about God that their parents, teachers, and preachers gave them while they were still children or adolescents. As adults, they equate faith with certainty about those ideas and assume that doubt is the enemy of faith. Perhaps shockingly for some, Jesus encourages his disciples to question their ideas about God because Jesus recognizes that none of our ideas will exhaust the infinite depth that is the mystery of God. Because faith is a living, growing relationship, we have to allow our encounters with Christ, right in the midst of the unkempt places we actually live, to challenge our ideas about God. Ironically, a tenacious defense of our ideas about God can sometimes get in the way of a genuine life-changing encounter with Christ. Let's face it, we are finite and God is infinite. As one of my philosophy students used to put it, we are small and God is really, really big. Nothing we ever think, imagine, or say about God adequately captures who God is. Besides, God is a who, not a what. Knowing and loving a who is always a work in progress. We never get to the bottom of another person, especially a divine one. Henry David Thoreau once said, when any real progress is made, we unlearn and learn anew what we thought we knew before. That is to say, we make progress only by unlearning what we thought we knew so that we can relearn it from a new and better perspective. Or, to paraphrase contemporary theologian Peter Enns, faith is not about certainty. If we want to grow in faith, we have to let go of being so sure that we're right. That's what Jesus was getting at in the illustration about the mustard seed. He said that with faith the size of a mustard seed, we will be able to tell a mulberry tree to hike up its roots and plant itself in the sea. Initially, This may sound as if Jesus was simply scolding them for their puny faith and telling them how much they could accomplish if they only believed with sufficient zeal. But that would be an odd response to their sincere request for help to become better disciples, to learn more adequately, more deeply, more truly what Jesus was getting at. It's not very, Jesus-y. Look more closely at the picture that Jesus paints. In the faith-infused universe, they would be able to order plants around. If the disciples' command, ordinary trees would uproot themselves, march forward on their little plant feet, and start growing out of the deep blue sea. This is nuts. It's just not how things work. And that's precisely the point. The first step in spiritual growth and genuine faith formation is giving up the idea that faith is about what we know. This is especially crucial for us in the 21st century. We've inherited Francis Bacon's dictum that knowledge is power. The experimental method of the natural sciences relies on the ability to predict and control. Knowing is about our power to control a world of things. But faith isn't about knowing things at all. It's about trusting a person, a divine person. It's about trusting that God will be faithful to us and will really be God, a God who is love through and through, no matter what. Since visiting the concentration camp in which my then 15-year-old mother suffered unimaginable terror and brutality, I've been thinking a lot about certainty and uncertainty. I'm certain that I'll fall if I stumble off a ladder and that I'll suffocate without oxygen. But that kind of stuff isn't what makes life worth living. I need to know it in order to survive, but it's not going to get me out of bed in the morning, much less motivate me to turn the other cheek and love my enemy. No, the big questions are more like these. Does love really make a difference in this world? Will my life have mattered after all? Will suffering, sacrifice, and sorrow be redeemed? Does God really know everything about me and still love me? I'm not certain about any of this, but I have learned to trust. I trust enough to go along with Christ as he keeps changing my mind about God, and that is what I take learning to be.